From our start in East Coast to a decade at 2FM, Tracy Clifford has been over 20 years on our airwaves.
And now she discusses life in her 40s, from her foray into TV and her diagnosis of silent endometriosis. You're very welcome, Tracy. I haven't been sitting next to you for a long time.
How are we doing? Happy weekend, happy Sunday, guys.
Yeah.
How are you?
We've had biscuits, so we're happy.
You've had quite the couple of weeks.
It's been a whirlwind. It's been a land. It's been lovely, and and it's been a venture into new things as well. It's been so crazy, but great. Yeah, it's been good.
Good.
Can we go back to the start?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
This is your life.
All the years ago.
Well, not that far back. So just after your communion, you started working on radio.
Well, from my communion money, I did buy a tape recorder with a little microphone, so I did actually start.
So you were recording your little links on that?
Little links and reading Airtel, pretending to be Andoyle back in the day. No, seriously.
Oh, so you wanted to be a newsreader? I
always wanted to be a newsreader. I always wanted to be doing something in broadcasting, and going to school. Back in the day with my dad in the car, we'd have Ian Dempsey on the breakfast show, and I'd be like, oh my God, that's the dream job. Yeah. And then obviously radio, my mum always had radio on all the time from all the different radio stations and all the programmes. So it just felt like it was the natural thing to do. Just kind of fell into it.
The amount of people who have broadcasting careers because they listen to Ian Dempsey.
I know.
It's crazy.
And I'm one of them. Yeah,
but it's understandable too.
Yeah.
He's the king.
Oh, God, but it is amazing, though, isn't it? Because radio is such a special place to be. There's a great look. I know, listen, we're all on telly now, but you started in radio.
Love it.
I started in radio. Radio heads. We all are, like.
I know, and I mean, radio is a great friend. It's a nice comfort for people. I mean, people who live on their own. During COVID, I mean, radio was a lifeline for a lot of people to get news, just to feel connected to people and to obviously listen to music, because I think music is still the connecting thing on music too, as on radio too, as well as talk radio. It is a great friend for people, and that's why. And it's a meet. It's an instant meeting. You get your instant response with text messages or Instagram messages, so you just kind of know how you're connecting when you are broadcasting on radio, so it's great.
So where did you get in the door first?
In the door first was pirate radio, actually. My late great friend, Tony Langsford, who isn't with us anymore, he had a pirate radio station in his bedroom in Ballyfermot, and I met him in college. And so it wasn't above board, but I mean, we can talk about it now because it's not around anymore. But his bedroom in Ballyfermot, playing dance music records, that's where I kind of started my love for dance music while studying broadcasting journalism. And then I went to East Coast straight away after Ballyfermot, and that's where I became a newsreader, worked with Declan Mean on the morning show, and that's where I learned nearly everything. That was my real college.
And he was a pirate as well.
And he was a pirate as well. And he's still an amazing supporter and friend. Like, he always texts to see how I am, and he recently celebrated, was it 30 years on East Coast most recently as well? Wow. So, yeah, he is, like, I mean, a king of broadcasting. So, I mean, I learned on the job by just looking at how professional he is. So, yeah, he was great.
So the drift into presenting happened there or elsewhere?
I think when I went to Spin then to work as the head of news and a newsreader there, my boss at the time knew that I was a dosser, knew that I was a messer.
Right.
And obviously it was a time of
What do you mean a dosser? You were not.
I was just always like, instead of sitting down and typing and, reading news stories, I was probably thinking of games to play on the floor, and my head really wasn't in it. And it was the time of the 2008 recession.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a lot of bad news. And I was like, reading a lot of bad news. And I just was like, oh my God, can I not just go interview pop stars? Because I worked in obviously a station where it was like a youth radio station. So I was given that opportunity to try out then with Ryan Phillips. And we had the Fully Charged breakfast show.
I used to love that. Fully Charged. I used to listen to it every day. I was gutted when you left it.
I know, and we loved that too. And we just had the crack. So that's where I kind of dipped the toe into radio presenting and having a bit of fun, and then interviewing big pop stars. And that's when that happened. So I kind of left news to one side.
And by God, you've interviewed some big pop stars.
I know.
I'm speechless, like some of the people you've ended up sitting next to.
When people ask me who we've interviewed, I'm so lucky to say anybody who's big we've done on the show. Yeah. Whether it's Spin or 2FM. Like, I mean, most recently we had Niall Horan on, we had Dermot Kennedy to celebrate his new album, which is #1 now. We, Lizzo, playing tin whistles with Lizzo, Cardi B. Like,
how was Lizzo on the tin whistle?
Lizzo, obviously, she plays the flute.
She's a flautist,
she's a flautist. So
she worked her way around it.
So we brought her in a tin whistle, and she played it backstage.
Magic.
Yeah, magic.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. And she loves, what's your man's name who does the Jerry, the guy who plays the tin whistle and the flute from Northern Ireland. I can't remember his
It'll
name.
come to us, it'll come
It'll come to us, yeah. But anyway, she loved him and she learned all about him back in the day.
Yeah.
So I brought her in a tin whistle and we played the tin whistle together with Lizzo.
She's great. At
Not many people can say that.
She's great to know impersonation as well as our Tracy, by the way.
But I tell you what.
No, don't you do that.
I will, do you know?
Oh, no.
She does a great Mary Byrne.
Mary Byrne doesn't like my impression of Mary Byrne, so no.
She does now.
No.
She took it in great. She took it in with a pinch of salt.
You can't
Back
go
in the
there and
day-
not do it.
Oh, no, back in the day, on midday, Elaine used to
She'd
have
gone
a panel
viral.
of women all the
Yeah.
time, and we made great friends, still
Yeah.
great
Yeah,
friends
yeah,
to this day with all the women you'd have on. And Mary Byrne was on, and I love Mary Byrne, but I used to sing like Mary Byrne to Mary Byrne, you know, so
Wow.
I was obviously
Okay.
with her fabulous alto operatic voice, you know.
The
But
crack was had.
Okay, all right, so we leave
I
it.
digress, yeah.
Can we talk about the people you've championed and given first radio exposure to as well? Because that's something you're very proud of.
I am very proud of. I mean, when I went to 2FM, which has a policy of making sure that Irish music is exposed and has given a platform. And I think that I didn't realise the breadth of amazing Irish artists that are out there within every genre. So when I went to 2FM, I kind of felt like, okay, this is a place where I can actually platform this, expose this, and really have a responsibility to do that. So, I mean, like, we have an initiative, it's called 2FM Rising. So there'll be so many new Irish up-and-coming acts, 10 every single year. So that's been going on now for nearly, obviously, 10 years. And every year we'd have a list of 10 and they'd be on our show and just giving a platform. I think that, you know, to get your song on the radio as a new and up-and-coming artist, it's a kind of a thing where your family are kind of proud. Oh, my God, I heard you on the radio. It's kind of like the first step.
Yeah.
So there would be people like, you know, Dermot Kennedy and, oh, God, there's so many of them when I think about it, that we just played, champion, bring them into Studio 8 and then you've seen them rise. Like CMAT was on the list before and obviously, you know, she is playing Coachella this weekend. We had her first kind of big interview on the show as well and she talked to us before she played all together now this year. So yeah, no, it's great to have brilliant Irish artists and then you know that you kind of gave them, like Jazzy was on the show and now she's like one of the biggest streamed artists in the world as a female dance music producer. So yeah, there's so many. So it's been great to do that.
Away from the radio, though,
Yeah.
in your personal life, you have spoken and publicly spoken about endometriosis.
Yeah.
And how it's affected you.
And March is endometriosis month, so I know there's been a lot of coverage and I know that Virgin Media is great at doing this, especially Ireland AM as well. I've been on before. I mean, it is one of those diseases that it is an all-body condition. And I mean, it's crazy to think that in 2026 that the national framework has only just recently been rolled out back in October. But I mean, it is a start. Like, I mean, people say that it takes like 8 to 10 years for a diagnosis where people are suffering, women obviously are suffering with this disease. And for me, I'd no symptoms of it. Symptoms obviously are intense pain. A lot of women who are watching this right now, they're probably suffering and crippled. They can't go to work. It has a financial implication, holidays, school, just life implications. For me, it was silent, but it's not really silent. For me, it was like, unsuccessful fertility treatment. And this is where I'm quite passionate about. Like, IVF services are brilliant in what they do, but they are a service. You know, you go to them when you have a fertility problem, but they don't try to investigate what the reason is. So with my infertility, like, the reason was silent endometriosis, but I had to kind of go and find out what was wrong. And it was through my acupuncturist who just... You know, people say when you are in fertility treatment, acupuncture is brilliant. Yeah. So obviously I did go down that road and my acupuncturist, she was fantastic. She just knew that my body was all inflamed and I had a massive inflammation problem. And she just was like, I just think you need to get checked out for endometriosis. And I did. And it turned out I had stage 3 and had to get a laparoscopy. And obviously that's the gold standard for endometriosis care. And thank God I had health insurance and coverage like that, because people are on waiting lists for years and years and years. Yeah. So it's a huge issue, and it's not just it's a whole body disease, not just a gynecological disease. It's a whole body thing. It can
manifest anywhere in your body. That's the problem, and people don't realise that.
Your eyes, your lungs,
your
anywhere.
brain,
your kidney.
Lesions in your bowels, everywhere. It's
everywhere.
And what's the treatment like for you now?
So for me, like, I mean, I'm not in any pain, which is incredible. And compared to people who have, you know, other types of endometriosis, as we said, it's crippling. But I had a laparoscopy a couple of years ago. And so, I mean, look, that's the gold standard care where they remove the endometriosis. And that seems to
So
be...
they put the camera there and they try and just excise the little bits and pieces
that's what
wherever
they do.
it is, yeah.
But when I got that diagnosis, for me, it actually felt like a beginning because it made it made sense of it, and it made me kind of go, okay, so that's what was wrong. I mean, because if people are...
Unexplained fertility is such a
I hate
horrendous
that
term,
word.
isn't it?
I mean, there's always a reason as to why. So, I mean, it takes a long time for you to have to diagnose it or to find out what the things are. But I mean, if there's somebody watching here even today who has problems with fertility, maybe it's that. So maybe just go and ask more questions and advocate for yourself. That is always the key.
Sometimes you'd be exhausted from it, wouldn't you? But eventually, thank God you did
with
get answers.
Life,
yeah,
you know, with life, you just want to get on with things. You want to, you know, go to work and do your job.
You are getting on with things, that's the thing. I know you stepped back from your show in 2FM, which of course you were a decade on the airwaves with that, but now you jumped over to the next studio over last week, the 6 o'clock show. How'd you find that?
Oh my God, I absolutely loved it. I mean, what a crazy day. The day that I announced that my show of 10 years is finishing up, and then to land on the screen of the 6 o'clock show with Brian and Katya then this week has been brilliant. Like, I mean, sure, I've always loved coming in here. Like, Elaine obviously gave me my first little TV debut,
little TV gang
on midday all those years ago. So I always feel like here is really comfortable and everybody is so lovely. But I loved it. Yeah, it was great fun. Great fun.
Okay, and we hope we see more of you.
Thank you.
Lots more of you. I've still got a gripe with you though.
Okay.
You did a TV show, Ireland's 40 Greatest Songs.
Oh God.
And you still didn't include I'm a Savage for Bacon and Cabbage.
I was not expecting that to be said today.
So, you know, you need to revisit that again, if you will.
Now, did you vote for it? I mean, you had to vote. Did you put your vote in?
It wasn't an option. Sorry, Brendan.
Don't forget your shovel if you want to go to work. Was that it?
That was number 100, I think.
Okay, we leave it. Tracy, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you.
All right, there's lots still to come after the break. Sunday Times bestseller and poet extraordinaire David Larby is here to spread a little bit of poetic joy.
We wrote poems, lads. I'm not joking. We'll be right back.